She was born with a brain condition called hydrocephalus. She's had 25 brain surgeries. She entered the school system at age 3 for special needs preschool. She has an IEP. She has a county-provided parapro just for her that is with her all day, every day, to help her facilitate that education. With this whole, crisis going on, we were all forced virtual. I was concerned with what the plan would be in the fall, especially for the kids that needed that one-on-one. Her team of teachers and things like that at her local school are wonderful, but we kind of had this bureaucratic wall in the middle of her team wanting to serve her and us wanting to get her services. There was no plan for kids forced to go virtual that needed the one-on-one support. That means there's a gap. It was disastrous. We ended up with she couldn't find where she was supposed to go. She was on the floor. Things were falling everywhere. She was disorganized, didn't know what paper or book to get out. And it was just horrible to watch because she's a very bright, actually a very smart little girl when she has the proper accommodations in place. By them leaving that gap, I cannot physically sit with her, 6 hours a day or whatever it is to be that one-on-one for her. That is a strain that I think a lot of families in our position are feeling. Those kids that need that one-on-one or need that in-person instruction that are having to then, stretch themselves to make this happen for their kid, but at the same time, that does impact the whole family.
Hi, I'm Buzz Brockway. I'm the Vice President of Public Policy here at the Georgia Center for Opportunity, and I'll be leading a panel here on discussing education options and things that are going on in Georgia. And as you saw in that video, the COVID-19 pandemic has impacted a lot of families. A lot of families have had to adjust to new things, to things that they've never had experienced before. And our education system is moving to trying to meet those needs, but there are a lot of needs and there are a lot of problems. And that's what we want to focus on today. We want to talk a little bit about today, the personalization that is so important in education in the lives of children. And we think we've put together a panel that can address that that topic very well. So I want to take a moment to introduce our panelists. We're very excited to have some wonderful people here today. We have Angela Lassiter, who is the superintendent or head of school at the Georgia Cyber Academy, which is one of the cyber academies that we have in Georgia that specialize in online education, which we're all becoming very familiar with now. Angela has served on school boards for public charter schools, for private schools, for virtual schools, and she has worked in schools that offer STEM education as well as STEAM education. She also, in her own personal life, her children have gone to public schools, private schools, homeschooling, and virtual schools. So she brings a wealth of knowledge of all the different options that are out there for parents. She's a graduate of Emory University Business School with a degree in business administration. So Angela, we're glad you're with us today. We also have Camille Naughton, who is the president of Cristo Rey Atlanta Jesuit High School. She was one of the first employees of Cristo Rey. She spent years working with a small team to build the school. And in July of 2014, the school opened as the 28th school in the Cristo Rey network. As vice president of advancement, she exceeded $25 million in capital campaign raising and raised $30 million in just 14 months. We might need to talk, Camille, about how to do that. And she's responsible for raising $2 million annually for the operating fund for the endowment fund and grant writing. Cristo Rey is a fabulous school here in Atlanta that specializes in dealing with children who need advantages and need a break to get into a wonderful education. So Camille, thank you for joining us here today. We also have Dr. Kiana Good. She serves as the Assistant Commissioner for Adult Education with the Technical College System of Georgia. She leads a team that helps adults, approximately 50,000 Georgia citizens in that program. She has experience as both a high school and elementary school teacher, and she also worked to oversee the partner with a new teacher project, Georgia Teaching Fellowship, and was the managing director of Teach for America School Leadership Initiative. She has a bachelor's degree in English literature from Fisk University and a master's degree in education from Georgia State University, and a doctorate degree in educational leadership from Mercer University. So she and her family live in Gwinnett County. So, Dr. Good, thank you very much for joining us. And our final panelist is Mark Peavy. He's the Director of Secondary Education, also at the Technical College System of Georgia. He serves as that commissioner, and he leads a team that manages all secondary facing initiatives that includes dual enrollment initiatives, working with the Georgia College and Career Academy Network across the entire state. Under his leadership, the system has experienced unprecedented dual enrollment growth, and over the last 7 years, they've expanded greatly in the Georgia College and Career Action Network across the state of Georgia. He's a 1992 graduate of Princeton University and a graduate of Leadership Georgia, and also a 20-year veteran of the U.S. Army. So, Mark, welcome, and thank you all for being here. So first, what I'd like to do is ask all of you to tell us a little bit more about your school or the program that you oversee. So Angela, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit more about the Georgia Cyber Academy.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Georgia Cyber Academy is a fully online virtual school. We've been in the state of Georgia for over a decade. We've gone through a lot of changes, and most recently we operate completely independently under our governing board and the State Charter School Commission. We serve students in every district and county in the state of Georgia. We have over 12,000 students. We serve students that are homeless, students that have special educational needs, gifted students in the dual enrollment and CTAE programs of the state of Georgia. We just are there to serve, and I think that that's the most important. We're there to give opportunities to students in every area of Georgia that may not have them through their districted schools, where there may not be a fully operational AP program or a fully operational dual enrollment program. We have partnerships with over 50 colleges, universities, and technical schools in the state of Georgia. So we can step in and fill those gaps and be there when a traditional districted school education doesn't necessarily meet the needs of the family and the students in the area where they reside.
Great, thank you. Camille, if you could tell us a little more about Cristo Rey.
Absolutely, thank you. So Cristo Rey Atlanta is, like you mentioned, Buzz, the 28th Cristo Rey school in the network of Cristo Rey schools in the country, but there's 37 of them now. So most large metropolitan areas do have a Cristo Rey school. And what the schools do is it's a 9th through 12th, it's high school, and it's college prep. 100% of Cristo Rey graduates get into college across all 37 Cristo Rey schools. And so we provide an excellent college prep curriculum, but we do it at a fraction of the cost. And the way that we do that is also really probably our magic. And that is through what we call a corporate work study program. So last year we were partnered with 132 companies in the city of Atlanta, and they provided internship programs for our students. So each company takes 4 students, and those students rotate. So there's one there every day throughout this school year. They have a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior. So by the time our seniors graduate, they've worked for 4 different companies, and they have these amazing resumes that, of course, look spectacular when they are being reviewed by an admissions committee at the college level. And they should, because the students have gained a lot of confidence and life skills in the process of working. And when you're 14 years old and you go to a company that is, it's pretty intimidating to walk into Austin and Bird when you're 14 years old by yourself, but they have to do that. And in the process, they learn a lot. And so we are proud of the fact that our students go to some of the most elite universities in the country. And because we serve students that are all free and reduced lunch, we're opening up their opportunities for a very different life than perhaps they would have if they'd stayed in the school district that they were zoned for. So that's who we are.
Great. Dr. Good, tell us a little bit about the program you work work on at the technical college system?
Absolutely. So we serve Georgians who lack a high school equivalency or who are struggling with English. We help ensure that our adults, our adult learners, they have paths forward. We serve them whether they come in functionally illiterate. We serve them if they have never attended school before, and we serve them for absolutely zero cost. Our work culminates with many of our adults receiving a high school equivalency. Traditionally, that has been the GED in Georgia, but just this month, we were able to launch another alternative test option, the HiSET. So our students have the opportunity to take either the GED or the HiSET to obtain a high school equivalency. And we also have a non-test based option for them as well, Career Plus, that we are piloting in 5 colleges. Our English language learners and our folks who are working towards a high school equivalency also have the ability to obtain an industry recognized skill certificate. Ideally, when they graduate from us, they are able to move into a family sustaining wage earning job.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Mark, tell us a little bit about the program that you work on at the technical college system.
Will do, Buzz. Thanks for the opportunity to be a part of the panel. And I apologize for the darker video. It's the joys of live video these days. So, but you guys are probably all better off for not really seeing me that up close anyway. So we'll just go from there. But no, happy to talk about the technical college system of Georgia as a whole, very, very briefly. And then a little bit about the dual enrollment stuff that we do. But as a system, we are Georgia's workforce development engine. That is at a high level what we do. Absolutely what Dr. Good talks about in terms of adult education is a key component of that. We really have 3 components that we look at a system level. One is our adult education, so exactly what Dr. Good is focused on. Our technical education, which is the technical programs, the actual workforce development efforts that we use. The 4 credit programs might be another way to think about that. And then we have a huge economic development arm where we work directly with business partners, industry around the state to be able to do specific training programs, whether it be on the front end when an institution is coming into the state to go to work. We have our Quick Start Wing, Quick Start program that really helps those folks get started, or a company that's been here in Georgia for years and is looking to expand through our technical efforts and through our economic development pieces. We will do that to help them support that. So, across all 3 of those, we'll serve a little over 300 to 350,000 students this year. We were about 320,000 last year, with about half of those in our technical education programs, probably 98,000 or so in economic developments, another 40 to 45, somewhere in that range, that are in the adult ed programs. And so we really are helping students all across Georgia from 16 to 76. If you're looking to expand your skill base, you want to reskill, you want an upskill, whatever you might want to call it. And whether, again, you're trying to explore something in high school or you're recreating yourself as a 40-year-old, that is our focus in terms of getting you the right kind of skill sets to be able to get you plugged in directly to the workforce. And so that is absolutely our mission specifically on the dual enrollment front. We really have expanded our dual enrollment efforts over the last 4 or 5 years. The state has a whole, but we have been leading that charge. I think we serve about 2/3 roughly of the dual enrollment students across the state of Georgia. Last year, that was a little over 35,000 students. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's students who are in high school that are taking a dual enrollment program, a college program, getting a jump start on their future careers. Hopefully, it could just be they're taking a technical or an academic program, an academic class that gets them one step down the road to a potential 4-year college degree. But just as importantly, and maybe more importantly, sometimes they're taking a technical program that will help them develop an initial skill set and further their interest in a particular career field that will lead to a long-term career for them. So across that whole spectrum, we work with with almost all Georgians and all facets of life, to be able to help improve both Georgia's workforce, but more importantly, improve the lives of those Georgians we're working with.
Well, thank you, Mark. When I was in high school, I took a sort of I guess it was probably a precursor to dual enrollment, because it's been a long time since I've been in high school, but I took an accounting class over at Gwinnett Technical College and realized then that I did not want to become an accountant. So, but thank the Lord for those who do want to become an accountant. But one thing I want to mention to our viewers, we would love to have questions from our viewers. Utilize the Q&A function, Q&A button that's at the bottom of your screen, and send it to us, and we'll get to as many questions as we possibly can in the time that we have. But what I want to talk a little bit now is, and get y'all's thoughts on how things have changed with the pandemic that we've all had to deal with, how that's impacted your students, how your institutions have responded to that, and maybe the good and the bad. I mean, it may be working great for some students, and other students may, as our video showed, some students, this has really been a challenge. So Camille, I'll start with you. How has your school and how's this impacted your students?
Sure. So as of probably everybody, I think the date March 13th, 2020 will live in infamy also. That was the day that we closed. And so our students went home. We were lucky in some ways because we have a one-to-one program. So all of our students had laptops anyway. And we had worked with one of our corporate partners, Comcast, had ensured that everybody had internet at home. So that was good. But we did an asynchronous remainder of the school year. And, when you look back at that, all scientists will say that that does not work particularly well. And there's not a great amount of academic intake that happens. And so I think we assumed, like everybody else, that we would be back in the fall. We were actually queued up and ready to go into a hybrid reopening in July. And then the numbers in Georgia were so horrific that we decided to postpone that for a quarter and reevaluate, which is what we did. So we were but we did have we went to an asynchronous teaching method. So the students were actually in class. We did shorten the day because we have a very long academic day. Typically it goes from 7:25 to 4, and we didn't want students in front of a screen for that long. But so we shortened the day a little bit and went to a block schedule. And so when October 13th was the first day of our second quarter, we had surveyed parents before that. 65% of them said that they wanted their students to come back. We gave them the option. And unfortunately, about 35% actually ended up coming back, but they're here and they're in so our teachers, bless their hearts, they're teaching to both a Zoom class and to the students that are in their room. And we have an A schedule and we have actually a gold and a blue schedule, not an A and a B, but gold and blue. And so the students, they're in class every day. They're either at home learning or they're here learning. And so that is what we have done. And it's not ideal, but it's the best we can do under the circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. Angela, let's go to you now. As an online school, you were, it probably didn't change much of your day to day. However, you mentioned that now you have around 12,000 students. As I understand it, that's quite an increase over previous school years. So maybe talk a little bit about that. And I know also you have been a resource to teachers across the state who are suddenly find themselves having to do this online learning. So maybe talk a little bit about that if you could.
So when COVID happened, of course, we were already online. We have one-to-one technology. Students that have free and reduced lunches qualify for hotspots, and we have a very robust program to provide that as well. We extended that to some families that were operating in different environments prior to COVID, who had better connectivity than they did then. So we didn't have a lot of changes as far as our program was concerned. Our platforms are designed to give synchronous live instruction in our classes. A lot of school systems did not have that ability. We did open an emergency enrollment at the time of the end of the year to provide families with the opportunity. There wasn't a lot of enrollment right at the end. I think people were just trying to figure out what they were going to do in COVID environment. But regardless of whether we were online or not, we were still impacted by COVID in how we support our teachers or give grace to them, rather, because we had a commitment to all of our families that were enrolled, but all of a sudden our teachers had their children at home. So sometimes you were teaching on with a 2-year-old on your lap. But we extended grace to everybody, and everybody understood we were in it together. I would say that we wanted to step in and give people help if they wanted the assistance to learn how to do virtual environment. We did that for families across the state of Georgia, or private schools or public schools or even charter schools that asked for assistance. We created web pages that would give them additional information, participated in conferences, talked about how you can transfer to virtual field trips and provide opportunities for students. What scheduling might look like in the virtual environment, what tools and platforms were available. We did that for other states. We did it for anybody that wanted assistance, because quite frankly, it's not just about your school, it's about providing an education to students. We very much believe in service, and we're not in competitions with other schools. And I think sometimes that's misconstrued in the charter and public districted school environments and others. But from my standpoint, having my children having experienced all forms of education that are available to them, we want the best education that's available to families. And for us, it's just about stepping in when a child needs something so that they can walk across the stage at graduation and into life, not for a piece of paper, but so that they can have a future, whether that be college or a 2-year program or a technical school or the military or whatever that is. I want them to have an educational foundation, and we wanted to be able to help everybody who was struggling in this environment. I too do not necessarily believe that an asynchronous education is best, and I think that's the misnomer of virtual education. Virtual schools that are fully online typically, or a great deal of us, provide day-to-day, 5 classes a day instruction with the students. 5-year-olds get puppet shows to teach phonics, the whole bit. And we wanted to help districts understand how to do that, because I think everybody was struggling in just doing emergency learning or distance learning or asynchronous learning. But the tools are out there, and we wanted to be able to be a resource to help them.
Great. Thank you very much. Dr. Good, maybe talk a little bit about how this pandemic has impacted the students that you deal with.
Absolutely. So in adult education, we have been almost 100% face-to-face. And there was a significant amount of training that we needed to do to ensure that we could pivot. So we have over 1,000 instructors across the state. We are in very urban areas, but we're also in very rural areas. So I would say in March, we pivoted mostly with asynchronous lessons, but at the same time, we provided a rather tremendous professional learning to our teachers virtually. We had instructors who had been phenomenal face-to-face instructors for 30, 40, 50 years, but there was a technology gap that frankly we needed to address. So at this point, about 60% of our programs are operating in some form of virtual manner. We do have many programs that have a hybrid schedule where folks come in face-to-face. We've always been flexible. We've always provided classes in the mornings and the afternoons and in the evenings, because we know all of our students are busy working adults. That flexibility is even more flexible now, if that's possible, because we're offering Saturday classes, Sunday classes for those who need to come on campus, but it's socially distanced. And then, we're able to supplement that with virtual lessons in between.
So just a follow-up, Dr. Good, are a lot of the folks in your program, were their employers? If you mentioned they work and then they're going to school as well. How have their jobs been impacted by this? Are they in hard-hit industries that maybe now many are unemployed? And what does that
Actually, many of our adults are your essential workers. They are in adult education. They are your grocery store clerks and cashiers. They are your custodial staff. They are those folks who never stopped working, but in many instances, and actually most instances, they are the ones who are unfortunately underemployed as far as their wages are concerned.
Yeah, gotcha. Thank you. Mark, now to you, maybe how has it impacted the broader, how has COVID-19 impacted the broader technical college system and the programs that you work with?
Yeah, great question, and really I think some successes that came out of it for us. You know, we, like many other universities systems, had been headed towards a good bit of online, at least online as an option, core academic programs for a while. And what the COVID epidemic really kicked off for us was an accelerated version of that. So very quickly, we were fortunate to already have a very strong platform in place, and so we just doubled up on the efforts to be able to get all of our core academic programs available online as much as possible as soon as the epidemic really started to set in. But that left us, because we do really have a focus on technical education, some things you simply cannot do online. And you can't learn to drive a truck online in a real sense. Believe it or not, there are some very valuable online welding opportunities. So you can simulate that, but when it comes time to put metal to metal, so to speak, you really need to do that in person. And so while we really were able to super accelerate getting all of our core academic pieces online and as much of our technical education online as possible, we, much like Dr. Good mentioned with her adult education program, we had to also focus on getting labs back open as soon as possible. And so just as quickly as we could, we put in procedures to get limited lab spaces open within another month or two of the epidemic setting in. And we've continued down that process. And in some cases, it's been one-on-one lab instruction. In other cases, it's been just smaller class sizes in labs so that we can do the spacing. But no question, that's been a key component for us, is to get those labs back open so students can get that hands-on experience that they needed. And we really feel like we've been successful with that. We also opened up some what we call professional development certificates that we provided online for free. For any Georgian that wanted to take them. Maybe it's a Microsoft learning piece, maybe it's a career development skills, a number of different professional development certificates. And we, throughout this process so far, throughout the COVID window, I think it's a little over almost 8,000 of those professional development certificates that folks around Georgia have earned, at no cost. And we've continued to serve our students. And so in this COVID window, we've still been able to award almost 37 awards, technical college certificates, degrees, diplomas for students to almost 25,000 students. And so what that says is we've continued to be able to help students cross the finish line, so to speak, that despite the challenges that COVID put in front of us, we've been able to find ways to, again, open those limited lab spaces, get those students in core academic programs online, and move down the road. And what we're seeing as time moves forward, this fall being kind of the first full semester, so to speak, that we've enrolled students, many post-secondary education entities are seeing declines in enrollment, and we're really not seeing that very much across all of our colleges. So we are a few percentage points down, but as a whole, we're very close to where we have been in the past. We're seeing students who, when you look at credit hours, even if we are down a few students, we're seeing many of those students taking advantage of this window and taking more credit hours. And so we've been very pleased with where that is. But that tells you we're going to continue to focus on making sure those opportunities stay open, and that especially when it comes to those hands-on skill sets that folks need to learn to be able to go directly into the workforce, that we keep those as a primary focus to open those up as much as we can. So.
Great. I guess I'll stick with you, Mark. We have a question from a viewer. Do you have fleet mechanics / diesel programs?
We absolutely do. We have those all over the state. We have partnerships with great companies like Caterpillar and others, and Yancey Brothers as an example. That skill set, diesel mechanics, name your price if you want to go to work and be one. We really can't get folks through those programs fast enough. So absolutely a critical need in Georgia. And so if dear viewer of this website, go find your local technical college or give me a call and I'll plug you into the right one if that's what you want to do. So
and hey, one advantage in a pandemic, if you're a truck driver, you don't have to talk to people. You're on your own. So great. Maybe sticking with you, Mark, and Kiana, if you could talk a little bit about this. You know, there's been various industries that have been hit very hard in this COVID pandemic, and some of them, it may be years before they really recover. And that means that people who work in those industries might be looking for other options and might be suddenly faced with, hey, what I've been doing in my career might not be available for a while. I need to go and do something else and get training in something else. Are you seeing students come into your programs like that, or how can the technical college system respond to that?
Kiana, they often start with you if you want to start with that. So.
Sure. So again, for my adult education students, they've been employed. However, I think we can all say that the pandemic has accelerated certain technologies. And so when I mention my folks who are cashiers, those are the ones who keep me up at night, because I feel fairly confident within the next 10 years, the automated kiosk is going to completely replace those jobs. This has helped us and allowed us to actually have those conversations with every single student in our program. How can we ensure that you have the skills that you need to withstand these pretty significant disruptions? We are, again, trying to integrate as much of the industry recognized skills as possible into our programs. And as we enroll folks into those programs, that's the explicit conversation that we're having.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think I'll add to that, Buzz. I mean, the literal thought process that you laid out is the wheelhouse of what we do. And whether it happens because of a COVID environment or simply because something like the carpet industry has changed dramatically and now is mostly automated as opposed to where it was maybe 5-10 years ago, much more people driven. We work with students all the time, and the COVID environment simply has sped up the process, who are looking to do exactly that. They found themselves with a skill set that is perhaps outdated, and they've got to update that, or maybe they've found themselves in a place where, you know what, I want to change my career, and I need a new set of skills to be able to do that efficiently and effectively. So that is absolutely what we do. I will toss out. It's probably, again, accelerated a bit by the COVID pandemic that we're going through, but things like Zoom and others, where we're all spending so much more time online, that's a great example of a place where we as a system have purposely and consciously jumped ahead as opposed to waiting on industry to come to us. We're jumping ahead, and the development of what we're calling our Cloud Academy is a great example of where we're working with Amazon there. There's a number of other companies that will fall under that umbrella to be able to proactively develop a workforce that is becoming more and more necessary as more and more things happen online. And so, that's something over the last few months that we've really accelerated and are rolling out. And Amazon, again, is the first partner that we've got there. But it's an opportunity for folks who either need to reskill themselves because, again, maybe the pandemic drove their current job into a tough spot, or maybe they're just looking to change because they want to upskill. That Cloud Academy is focused on the needs of the kind of bleeding edge and future workforce in that industry, and that's exactly how we approach most of those, where we're really focused on finding those options, our opportunities that Georgia's industries need, and getting out ahead of them so we can have that workforce there waiting for them, as opposed to them having to sit back and pull it from wherever they can. So we try to do that, COVID pandemic or not, but I do think that's been one of the knock-on effects from our perspective, is we've just continued to focus on that, drive into those places where we can see some emerging trends and try to get ahead of them. So.
Great, thanks. Just a reminder to our viewers, if you've got a question for one of our panelists or all of our panelists, that we've got the Q&A function down there that you can utilize, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. Actually, a question just came in. So it's a question for Angela and Camille. Though neither of you are at traditional public schools, are you able to share your thoughts on the COVID-induced widening achievement and opportunity gap that is happening for at-risk students and underserved students in typical public schools? And what recommendations might you have for people to help close that gap during this time, and or help make sure that gap doesn't get widened, and or maybe any success stories that you can share along those lines? So
for Georgia Cyber Academy, we serve about 16,000 special education students. And our students, actually, our platforms, when the pandemic hit, we did have some face-to-face services that were available and accommodations for those students. We actually redid over 700 IEPs to transition all of those services to online. So as far as our meeting our obligations for accommodations and special education services, our services never stopped, and our full fulfillment of our IEPs never stopped, with the exception of psychological evaluations, which are best done in a face-to-face environment. But when we realized that the pandemic was not actually going to abate by August, we knew that we couldn't delay those particular. We had about 78, I believe, that were pending. And we found a different way to do that because we didn't want them to pend beyond August. So we transitioned those. We spend a lot of our time helping school districts understand how to meet those obligations for students virtually, or how to do it safely in a face-to-face environment. I will say, to date, no matter any of our face-to-face, whether it be in the office or our PDs, or any of our student interactions or mandated testing that we have to do sometimes, we have not had one COVID transferred case because of the protocols that we put in place following the guidelines of the CDC and otherwise. I would not recommend that you do that widespread, but I do think that there is a safe way to do that when you have to meet the accommodations and needs of an individual student. If that's the question that they were asking, I hope that
I think that's part of it. And Camille, I'd like your thoughts on that, and then maybe we'll tackle the other aspect of what recommendations you might have for making sure that this gap, we can close it and it doesn't exist. But Camille, go ahead.
Sure. So yeah, I'm kind of looking at the question because it's a big question. And it's talking about sort of low income students and how we can help alleviate that opportunity gap that's showing itself. It's happening. And this is just my thought, but it's interesting. Dr. Good talked about a lot of the people that are in her program. And those tend to be the parents of the students that are having this achievement gap. So these are parents that have to go to work. So you have a student, maybe a third grader who's home, who's taking classes by themselves. I mean, with no adult that's there. So I think, to me, it's the safety net that's not there. And so I think it's really incumbent upon the educational institution to be reaching out and helping. We have students that are struggling terribly here at Cristo Rey. And so we're trying to partner really well with our families, because because we're in unprecedented times, these are families that are being asked to both be a teacher and to be a provider. And so how do you do that? And so we as a school need to step in and give them every bit of support that we have as well. So we can't let kids slide. We can't let anybody fall through the cracks. That's on us. That's our job. And so parents are trying just to be able to keep the rent paid and things like that. So we need to be in constant communication. So that, to me, is probably the best way that we can close that achievement gap, is to have a complete commitment from the school system that they're going to be calling the parents every time that they see something that needs to be addressed, and not letting it fall to the parents to have to do that.
Yeah, that's good. Thanks. Any other thoughts on that, Angela? if you're a parent of, maybe a new parent in your school who's here because, that they weren't getting their needs met in another place, but they have to work and their child's going to be at home. How do you handle that?
I think that in our environment, it's a little different because our platforms are there. They are actually in class on a set schedule, much like they would have been in school. However, we do recognize that it's very difficult for parents as well who are working, right? So we restructured our schedules to actually have an hour break in the middle of the day that's consistent across our entire school, that's hopefully aligned to the workplace learning environment so they can reconnect with their students or otherwise. But our teachers are upfront and forward facing in a live environment. So the students might be in the room next door to their parents who are in their offices working. But as far as the social aspect and the support, we have a team of over 100 they're called family success liaisons that actually watch all of the attendance and whether a child is slipping or not. And they call and they offer support. And sometimes it's just an ear. And sometimes it's more of how can we connect you to other social services, or even sometimes to take care of their psychological needs or difficulties. We have an entire counseling team of over 50 that provides social services and connections to resources throughout the state of Georgia. So I don't think that there's an easy answer for that. Sometimes, we're still under public school requirements where kids have to go to school, and we have to adhere to that. I think that grace is a good thing. I think being there to listen and have empathy. I think us having support networks, we spend a lot of our resources on those support departments of counseling and our family success liaisons, and that it's very difficult in this time, and sometimes there's just not a good answer, but sometimes just being there. And if you can hold your hand virtually, we try to hold the hand of our parents virtually. They're new, and there's got to be a lot of grace, and we've got a lot of webinars and a lot of resources, and sometimes they just want you to listen to them. But I don't think that there's a good answer, Buzz. I'm going to be honest. I mean, sometimes there's just not. Sometimes your job doesn't lend yourself, or your children are not school age yet, so you're trying to manage school age children and your job and the new baby that you had. And that's a difficult thing in this pandemic. Those are some of the things that everybody's struggling with. And I don't know if we have an answer. I think that we're getting better as a state and as a community and understanding that those supports have to be there. Where in the past, I think that we just largely left families on their own, but we are understanding that that's something that has to be done now.
Yeah. Great, thanks. We've got quite a few questions coming in through the Q&A. So thank you very much, because these are a lot more interesting than the questions I came up with. So we have a question here from Mark. How are you getting high school students referred to your technical programs, and how are students becoming aware of the opportunity of trade schools and encouraged to pursue that professional route?
Great question. I appreciate that from the audience here. We have across the state, we have 22 colleges, number one, and we serve the entire footprint, north to south, east to west of the state, and via one of those technical colleges. And at every one of those, we have what we call a high school coordinator staff and a dual enrollment engagement team. So every high school in the state of Georgia, public or private, belongs, if you want to call it that, to one of those high school coordinators. And their role is to work directly with that high school, primarily through the high school counselor, to be able to introduce our programs to students, and to be able to make sure any students that are interested in those programs get the opportunity to come do those dual enrollment programs. So we have a very focused and very conscious outreach program to each high school directly. That is really best done on the local level, and so that's why we handle it that way. We have local partnerships between every one of our colleges and their local school districts to be able to introduce those partnerships. In many cases, we are actually teaching some of the technical programs for those respective high schools, so we have great partnerships there. One of the pieces, and it's interesting, the encourage to pursue that professional route piece. So much of that is on the parental side, and so I don't want to leave that undiscussed here. Is how do we make sure that as parents, and I'm a parent of two college students, one who just graduated, one in college, and a high school senior. And so I count myself in this number of how do we make sure that our students are talking about and looking at all of the various options. And I think a way to do that is to really focus on what's next for these students as they come through high school, where they want to be connected, and how do they see themselves from a future career perspective. I don't think I'm 50 years old. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up yet. And so it's unrealistic sometimes to think that we're gonna have every high school junior or senior connected to what is going to be their single future career. That's pretty much a silly concept in today's workforce. But making sure that they are connected to what's next, and as parents, making sure we talk to our students, our children, about let's look at high school programs that might get you some exposure. Buzz, if you don't want to be accountant, I'm glad you took that accounting class and figured out you didn't need to be one. And there's almost as much value in doing that as there is in taking that course, and maybe that healthcare course, and discovering that, hey, you know what, this is my passion, and I'm going to be a nurse, or I'm going to be a doctor down the road. And so that opportunity to explore, and as parents encouraging students to explore is a huge one. And then working through the high school counselors and our high school dual enrollment staff is how you physically make it happen. But that conversation about connecting what you do in high school, what you do in the educational world, to that future career, and how those things are all tied together is a hugely important conversation that we as parents and we as influencers in the lives of high school students can have.
So Dr. Good, maybe your thoughts on that question, and because you're in that as well, but maybe it's people who are a little later on in that process. So.
Absolutely. I'm sorry, I'm having some.
Yeah, you're muted. Let me see if we can unmute her real quick. Well, while we're figuring that out.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's saying that it's a little unstable.
Sure. We can hear you just fine.
Can you hear me? I'm sorry, it's always unfortunate when this happens.
Yep, no, we can hear you just fine, so go right ahead.
Sure, so I think the question is around specifically how we are recruiting.
Yeah, and how do folks on the front end find out about your program and help make that right decision at the right time?
We never want to be a secret. And unfortunately, I think adult education often is a really well-kept secret, particularly because we are 100% free, and there's an adult education program in every single county in the state. We, of course, utilize social media. We've been doing some really interesting things with geocaching, but we have done through our own research focus groups and conversations with students, and about 80% of our students, regardless of billboards, social media ads, they find out about our program through word of mouth. So as much as possible, we are talking to everyone and anyone in the community to talk up adult education, because we know that one-on-one, hey, I know you didn't finish. This is an opportunity. There's lots of flexibility. It won't cost you anything. That's what actually gets people to our doors, to our programs, and plugged in now via devices.
Yeah, great. All right, we have another question that's come in directed toward Angela and Camille. Your schools serve a certain number of students, but in Georgia, there's I think the number is around 1.8 million other students in other schools. How are you able to share the best practices of your school with other schools and with parents to help spread the knowledge, I guess, is the things that work great in your programs? How are you able to share that with other people?
Angela, you want me to go first this time? Okay. So the biggest thing that we have, the most unusual component to a Cristo Rey school, is the corporate work study program. So we have organizations that come to us all the time that are asking us how it works, and we freely share that with anyone that asks. It is not easy to undertake. I mean, we spend a lot of time, it's very regulated by the Department of Labor. It's a massive undertaking. So I think that some people think it's a good idea and then they want to start it and then they dig in and they realize it's too much. But that's what we do. That's sort of our unique program. And so we do talk to anyone that wants to learn more about that.
Great. Angela?
We serve over 12,000 students in the state of Georgia currently. We do have room for another 2,500, 2,700, and we do have a mid-year enrollment that will be coming up for those that didn't miss our August one. And just like Kiana said, you can have billboards and you can have messaging and magazine ads and you can be on websites, but word of mouth is actually how people find out about your school. I think that we do, as I previously stated, and I don't want to take the panel's time, we do share resources. We sit on panels, we talk to other states, we help private schools and public schools, and anybody that calls, we set up web pages for that. My team has been directed to lend support to anybody who asks it and to share resources. We even have parents that text us and go, my child's 4, what can I do? Because they may not have a school when they're 5. And we share all of those resources. We're completely open. So anybody that has a question, all they have to do is go on our website. My email is very visible. It is utilized frequently, and I do answer or direct those emails to a director that will answer every single question every single day. So if you need resources, we can provide it. If you need suggestions for platforms, if you even need our school directors or a team to go in and help a school understand the intricacies of connections, we can do that as well. We basically want to serve. And it's not just the kids in our school. I will do anything to make sure that students, we serve K through 12, and I don't know if I mentioned that. So we have 5-year-olds and we have 18-year-olds. And Mark's program has benefited my daughter because she is a dual enrollment student, and she will get her AA degree from Georgia State in business prior to going to Georgia Tech. So I'm very proud of her. And so Georgia has a lot of rich opportunities. I'm just not sure that everybody knows what those are, but this panel is very knowledgeable. I think all of us are willing to share or help direct anybody to any resources that's available. There is an incredible amount of students out there that just don't know what their options are. And I'm very grateful to the Georgia Center for Opportunity, allowing people to explore those options or to provide information for that.
Well, awesome. Well, that's probably a great segue. We just have a minute or two left, and we're seeing some things in the chat where people are definitely interested in all of your programs. So mention tell us how folks can find you, can get in touch with you. Dr. Good, I see you jumping in, ready to jump in. So jump in and tell us how do folks find your program, and then we'll go around and let everybody have that chance. So.
Absolutely. So I am going to make sure that I also put information in the chat so that everyone can access that as well. Of course, feel free to look at our website. That is on the TCSG website, and we have a main page, Adult Education. And everything you ever wanted to know about adult education can be found there. We're also on social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and of course, at any time, you can reach out to me directly. I probably have the easiest website because my last name is so easy. It's just cgood@tcsg.edu.
Great. Camille, how can folks find more about Cristo Rey?
Again, I'll do the same thing as Dr. Good. I'll put our website on the chat, but yeah, you can go through the website. You can contact me directly at cnaughton@CristoReyAtlanta.org. And happy to help any way that anybody, and also just a plug for us, if anybody's listening that has students that are of the appropriate age, on our website is obviously an application process as well.
Great. Mark?
Dr. Good hit our website. I'll just add that wherever you live across the state, there is a local technical college that serves you and your community. You probably know that already, but if you don't, you can go to our website to find it. You could probably just walk out on the street and yell really loudly, and you can probably have somebody from the technical college system hear you. We have, like I said, 22 colleges, 85 campuses. We've got a campus location probably within a stone's throw of where you live. So go find one of those. Again, if you've got a student in high school and you're wondering about dual enrollment, talk to their high school coordinator. I am positive that their high school counselor will know who that is, because those folks stay connected at the hip from a dual enrollment standpoint. So please go find those things and know that we are there. We're really just an access institution. And so there are no tests that keep you in or out. We do some placement tests to help you figure out where to go. But if, again, whether you're starting from an adult education, need a GED standpoint with Dr. Good, or you come through high school, you've got some skill, wherever it is, we've got a program, we've got an opportunity that'll help you. And they're between Hope grants and other kinds of scholarship opportunities. Georgia does a really good job of making the ability to come reskill, retool yourself something that is very, very affordable also. So just know that if there's an inkling out there of something you want to do, come see us and we'll help you figure out how to do it. So.
Awesome. And Angela, how do folks find you?
Our website, and you can see it on my background. It's www.georgiacyber.org. There's an enrollment page. The resources for teachers are under the ellipses on the right side if you want to go to those pages. And you can email me at alassiter@georgiacyber.org. We have a fully functioning work-based learning program. We have over 100 partners throughout the state, serve K through 12. And we do have space available, and we are enrolling now for a start of January 4th. Please feel free to reach out to us.
Awesome. Well, this wraps up our panel. I want to thank all of you for joining us. We had a great discussion, and I think the folks got a lot out of this based on the comments and questions that are coming in.